The 2022 election was perhaps one of the most grueling political experience of our generation. Some felt physically tired from standing for hours in grand rallies. Many feel emotionally exhausted. Personal relationships were damaged because of political differences. Others feel anxious about what the future holds when the next administration takes power. On this episode, we will think about ways to rebuild political relationships and rediscover our political power as we enter a new era in nation building. I'm Nicole Curato, and this is Meet the Millennials. Many of us interact with friends and family members whose views we do not share, and it's hard not to feel frustrated when our voices, no matter how reasonable, are not being heard. Joining us today is Dr. Anna Tuazon. Anna is from the Department of Psychology in the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Hi Anna, thank you for joining the program.
Thanks, Nicole. It's nice to be here.
Let's just have a sense of the people that you've been talking to after the election. I get the impression that many people feel tired after the campaign. Is that unique to this particular election, or have you noticed this in previous campaigns as well?
So definitely this election has been, people are tired and exhausted simply because they have been very animated and passionate about this election. People felt very strongly for their candidates. People felt very strongly about the next 6 years should be for Filipinos.
And so it makes sense, right? That after that, people are just exhausted and tired. And I think we also saw a lot of first-time voters. We saw the youth get very activated in this election. And so, of course, it's their first time. And it's also, for some, right, their first loss. And they're not really prepared what to do after that.
Yeah, oo nga, they say the first cut is the deepest, right? So your first political heartbreak will probably define you. So let's go to that side of the story, because people who supported the winning candidate usually tell them to just move on. We need to heal as a nation, right? Well, first of all, is healing really necessary, or is it okay to just feel defeated for people who felt that the election was such a political heartbreak?
Healing and recovery is definitely essential from a mental health standpoint. Whether your candidate won or lost, it's really important to recover, and especially in an election. This is not just a game, right? This is just not one side versus the other. At the end of this, we should all be able to come together and be a united country. And so, yes, we'd like to heal, but telling someone to heal and move on is not necessarily the most healing message, right? And so I do hope that we all can sort of allow each other and help each other to sort of look forward, have something to look forward to in the next 6 years.
So how do you think might we do that? I mean, of course, the idea of uniting and healing sounds ideal, but like what you mentioned, it might not be the best for people's mental health. Can you expound a bit more on that?
I think it's safe to say that this election was very polarizing, and the more important work comes after, right? So for the people who lost, they're very scared right now, right? They're very scared. They're worried that their needs won't be met, that they won't be safe. And so for the winning side, it's really important that they assure that they're going to be leaders for all Filipinos, that they're going to address the needs of everyone, that the fears, right, to assure them that those fears won't actualize, and that they're here to genuinely listen to everyone. That's really, really important. And here's what, it's not like equal because the ones who win gain power, and those who have the power have the responsibility, to quote Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. So they actually have to have more responsibility, right? In assuring everyone that the outcome of this election benefits every single person in this country.
I think that is such a powerful insight. So, do I understand it correctly that Filipinos whose candidates won in this election have a bigger responsibility to assure their friends and family members who supported the losing candidate that not necessarily things will be okay, but that we can move forward together?
Yeah, because again, this is not like a basketball game, right? That after after a win or a loss, you go home and you go your separate ways. This it's not just about election day. It's about, okay, the next 6 years has been sort of decided who are going to be our leaders, who are going to be our public servants. And so as public servants, right? And so they need to really show that they're here for all, right? Not just one side. And so, yes, I do believe those in power, right? Those who have gained power need to use that power responsibly and need to, because again, because of the polarizing nature of this election season, to assure them, to sort of move the needle in the center. So to speak, right? To say, hey, it's not that extreme. We don't think you're bad. We don't think you're evil on both sides, right? And say, hey, don't worry. Like, we're going to really, build this nation. We're going to listen. And of course, who can generate such a future for us than those who are in power, right? Those are elected leaders, essentially.
One of the, I suppose, worries of people is how they can face their friends who probably said hurtful things during the elections. Is it worth revisiting these relationships, or should we walk away from politically toxic friendships?
I don't think there's one answer to every relationship. Every relationship is unique. Some relationships are much more important and essential to us, to the point where we need to work through our political differences or kind of find, because the reason why people cut off from these friendships or relationships, right, is because they realize that the values are so different that they don't know if they can accept the other person. Now, if this person is family or someone very important to you, it might be worth at least the effort to explore whether there are redeeming values in that other person. And for others, maybe it's not worth that effort, right? To say, okay, well, you know, we only really want to work on relationships that matter to us. We don't need to work on every relationship. Really, it comes down to, do our values still overlap, right, at a certain fundamental level?
Well, thank you, Anna. I started making a mental checklist of these friends and relationships that definitely need to be maintained. We will talk more about this later, but when we return, we will talk about how we can advance our political projects after a divisive election season. You're still watching Meet the Millennials. Welcome back to Meet the Millennials. A while ago, we talked to Dr. Anna Tuazon on different ways in which we can rebuild personal relationships after a divisive campaign season. So let's now switch gears and let's think about how we can reclaim our political power even after now that the election is over. Joining us today is attorney Mildred Ople. Mildred is the Program Officer of YouthLed, a collaboration between the Asia Foundation and the USAID. YouthLed aims to promote democratic governance and nation building. Hi Mildred, welcome to the program.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you for having us.
I'm very excited to talk to you about this because obviously you're an expert on the topic. And I want to get your take on the enthusiasm and the energy that we saw with the Gen Zs and the millennials during the campaign season. And this happened online and offline. So what do you think is next? Do you think or do you see any indication that such enthusiasm can be sustained, not just in the next few months, but maybe in the years to come?
I would like to share our experience in the program since we've organized 12 geographic areas of clusters of youth organizations doing non-partisan campaign. After the elections, we have seen a great, how do you say this, low spirits among the young people composing these youth organizations in the different geographical areas. And some of them even left the group of our Facebook messengers and Viber group chats. So we're really seeing a lot of decline in the enthusiasm of the young people in those respective non-partisan campaigns. However, after a certain candidate try to change the direction from depressing and grieving moments to something to look forward to, so there's also an increase in the new perspective or the new mood of the young people composing these youth organizations. And we hope that if this will continue to generate inspirations or new motivations among the young people.
That is a very important insight. Can you tell us how exactly you motivate young people in a non-partisan way na kahit magkakaiba naman yung sinuportahan nila sa kampanya, all of them can still have something to look forward to? How did you do that?
One strategy, I think, is doing issue-based campaigns, because no matter who will win the election or who won the election, the issues on the environment, poverty, education, employment, and domestic violence for some areas in the country, it will still persist. So we try to remind them that despite the outcome of the election, these issues remain very important, and it affects a lot of the people around them. So the young people are expected also to do their share in continuing these advocacies despite the outcome of the election.
Before we close this segment, any final tips to millennials and Gen Zs who still have that passion and enthusiasm to make a difference after the election have finished?
The young people will definitely inherit what the country will be in the next 3 to 6 years. So whether they join a losing or winning candidate, the issues that affects their daily lives will matter. And there is no better way of changing these issues and concerns um, other than by doing something about it, by joining advocacy groups, by pushing for legislative reforms, not in the national level, but in their respective local level. Because if they can't make a difference in a national scale, definitely they can make small change or small differences in their barangay, perhaps in the preparation of their barangay youth development plan, or in their municipal level, where they can see a champion youth advocate in the Sangguniang Bayan. So they can take advantage of the new reforms in the Sangguniang Kabataan to really do something about these issues and concerns that affect the young people.
Nako, thank you, Mildred. I think yung message is magtatrabaho pa pala talaga tayo. We can't just take a back seat and be spectators in our democracy. So we'll discuss this more later, but for now, we will pause for a break. And when we return, we will talk about how we, as citizens, can also prepare for the first 100 days of the new administration. Please stay tuned. You're still watching Meet the Millennials on CNN Philippines, and still with us are Dr. Ana Tuazon and Mildred Ople. Alright, so when we talk about the first 100 days, we usually ask experts about their expectations from the new administration in terms of their plans and policies that will shape the course of the entire administration. But I think we should also shift the conversation and start talking about the role of citizens during the first 100 days of the new administration. So let's start with you, Mildred. So as someone who is working closely with youth leaders, I think a lot of citizens are also wondering how we can extend civic education to young people who are not necessarily part of your programs. And of course, there are many woke and aging millennial parents who care about the civic education of their children, di ba? Na how can we institutionalize political participation kahit sa labas ng election? So what are your thoughts on this? What should we look at as citizens?
Education really starts at home. So it's really a challenge for millennial parents to really be objective in providing the context and providing what should be learned. Not just how the government works, but also the role of citizens in making sure that their government is accountable, transparent, and there's room for citizen participation. So as early as I think 5 or 7 years old, we can open the minds and the hearts of our kids. I have a 5-year-old daughter that sometimes ask me during election time, who are the winners and why is it important that I vote, or will it contribute to her being able to be sent to a good school. So those questions need to be answered as objectively as possible. So really, the home is the first source of information on civic education of our children.
Right. And as you mentioned, education starts at home. But what if the parents themselves are having a hard time educating their children to, for example, be good citizens? And I want to bring Anna in this discussion because in one of your columns, you talk about the Filipinos' vision problems, that we only see two colors sometimes, that we see politics just in terms of, for example, red or pink or sometimes yellow. So, and in that column, which I found really inspiring, you were talking about the importance of seeing the spectrum of the rainbow when we deal with other people. So, how do you think we can pursue that?
In terms of people to people, really see people as people, right, with a varying multidimensional set of perspectives and values. It's also really important not to make rash judgments, based on party affiliation or even political affiliation, especially moving forward, as you said, right? The first 100 days or even the next 6 years, it's about issues that matter to us, right? Because just because from one party doesn't really determine what issues are going to be valued or prioritized. And so, as active citizens, we need to make sure that we are really addressing what is important to Filipinos. And so, yeah, like let's leave the stereotypes behind, really, and leaving the stereotypes behind isn't betraying your political affiliation or even your values, right? Because values are more important, I think, at least as a mental health person, right? Values are way more important than party affiliation or a two-sided kind of issue.
Yeah, and I think what I'm getting you both from what you're saying is that regardless of who the politicians in power are, the issues remain the same, right? Poverty is still there, the education crisis is still there, and it is the citizens who really carry the load of these problems. And this is the reason why we cannot afford to disengage, and we cannot afford to just keep fighting each other without finding collective solutions to these problems. So let me ask you, on a personal and a professional level, what do you think you will personally do on the first 100 days of the new administration? Let's start with you, Anna.
Well, I have, it's something that I've done uh, since the elections. Is okay. Where am I needed? What do I need to do? Kind of going back to my, I'm a teacher, I'm a clinician. I take care of students, I take care of my clients, and so really just okay, what can I do? Right, focusing on what we can do in our environments. Be a good friend, be a good person, do good works, and respect people's rights, really kind of allow them to express things, because that's one of those that's one of those rights that are very important. Whatever happens right? I'm going to be a teacher, I'm going to be an educator, I'm going to be a clinician, and hopefully continue to help people.
Oh, thank you, Anna. And finally, Mildred, first 100 days, what is your personal and or professional promise?
My professional promise, of course, is to continue our work in youth-led or youth leadership for democracy. We're actually looking forward on who the administration will appoint at the National Youth Commission, because that's our main partner in all our programs, especially in the local youth development councils in every LGUs. And we're also looking forward on who will we work with now with the Department of Interior and local government. So those two, and of course, the Department of Education for our civic education engagement. So we will clearly monitor and watch out and see areas of possible collaboration regardless of who will be appointed. And on a more personal level, yes, I will continue to, and I will try what Dr. Anand told us or shared to us a while ago about, trying to making an effort to talk to our friends and family and relatives who've been with heated discussion and argument during the course of the election. And, of course, we were still needing to move forward and to do our respective jobs, our respective advocacies. So regardless of our past discussion during the election, we must definitely move on for our country and for our children.
Well, there you have it. Thank you, Mildred. Thank you, Anna, for sharing your time and expertise with us. I hope the audience find your advice inspiring and motivating, because really, as Filipinos, we have no choice but to work together. Our destinies are entwined. So thank you for watching the program. This is Meet the Millennials. I'm Nicole Curato. See you next time.